Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to According to Carlo. Another very special guest today. We've known each other for a long time. Old veterans in this business. I'd like to welcome Dan Cooper today. Obviously, one of Canada's top realtors, and was Canada's or has been Canada's top realtor in the Royal LePage system for many years. So, welcome, Dan, and thank you for being here.
Nice to be here, Carlo. It's been a while since you and I have actually sat down like this, and I'm trying to see you through this megaphon now.
Yeah, it's okay. There you go.
It's pretty cool.
The camera can see you perfectly.
Sound good?
Yeah.
This is great. I love it.
So Dan, tell us a little bit about, like, people who are watching, obviously a lot of realtors, they're fascinated by people's success like yourself. Tell us, and I think you told me 1990 you started, right?
That's right.
So, by the way, when I talk about the 90s, everybody here says, oh, Carlo, there he is talking about the 90s again. But they didn't live through that like you and I did. But tell us about your start. Maybe tell us a little bit what you did before that and what your start, and tell us your experience in the real estate business, especially since then.
Sure. Wow. Okay. Well, 1990, that was an interesting time.
That's for sure.
It was the beginning of a recession. And back in the day, they actually acknowledged and said, yes, we're in a recession. We don't do that now. We just pretend we're not. But having said that, it was a pretty monumental recession. I was brand new in the business. I got in 1990, and really nothing was happening. And so here's the new kid in the block that shows up, and there's really no real estate being transacted. It was going down big. The market went down for like 6 years.
Yeah, I would say 95, 96 is when it turned around. Started to turn.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I was blessed. Maybe I wasn't by getting into real estate at the beginning of a recession. But to be honest, the strong survive. And, there was no easy way to do the business back then. I kind of learned from the school of hard knocks. It was a completely different landscape back then. I mean, real estate has changed so much. And now it's all technology and AI and so much more automation. Back then, you actually spoke to people face to face, and it was relationships. And to be honest, maybe that's the direction we're heading in right now. But honestly, if I could go back, I think it was a great time to get in the business. And you really had to work, and you had to do a lot of smart things. And I've always been a marketer. So even in university, I did a commerce degree at Laurier. Actually, my first business was in pharmaceuticals. I was in sales for a large multinational in Toronto, and I did that for 8 years. So I was in sales, marketing, public relations, medical science liaison, product management. I wore a lot of hats. And to be honest, it was probably good for me because I learned a lot. So you see a lot of kids getting in the business these days, and they're at a bit of a disadvantage because you almost need one career first to learn a lot so you can deal with people. Because, right now I'm dealing with a lot of my clients are, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old. And if you're 20 years old, it's tough. It'd be very tough to do. So I don't know. I look back realizing that it was probably a great time to get in the business.
I'll tell you, it was a great time because I got in 86. And for me, I was, just a real young kid. And
you had some good years, right?
I did. So 86 to 89 to 90, it was like, wow, this business is easy. Yeah. And the world is easy and life is easy. Yeah. I think I told you once that I sold 40 condos. I was third year university.
That's nuts.
And now they were all at 80 or 90 grand a piece. But there were still transactions. Mm. And I thought, wow, this is easy. This is a joke. And what's so hard about this? And then 1990 came and wow. So it took a while for people like me to acclimate to the new marketplace, where people like you started in that place. And if people are starting now or the last 2-3 years, I think it's actually can be very beneficial. Mm-hmm. That's what gave you the strength to do what you did.
Yeah.
I mean, you were a top producer pretty quick.
Yeah. I remember I sold 51 homes in my first year, but you know what? Barely, because I was still interviewing in the pharmaceutical trade because I wasn't convinced. I thought I knew what I wanted to do. And back in the day, there was a lot less people in the marketplace selling, and they had attitude, and nobody was really doing it the way I would do it. Nobody was really marketing properly. So I saw a huge opportunity, and that's kind of why I jumped in. But, jumping into a new career in the early 90s was tough slugging. So I was interviewing in the pharmaceutical world still. And I remember I got a job offer from a company in Montreal to be one of their district managers. And it was beautiful. There was travel, a car, good money. And I turned it down. And that was a tough decision. The next day, I sold a house, and I didn't even know what to do, because I didn't know anything about paperwork back in the day, but I sold a house. And so it slowly gained momentum, and then it gained momentum fast because I think I caught on fast. And so I did 51 deals my first year, then 68 the next year, and then I believe I was over 100 my third
I
year.
remember your ads at the Oakville Beaver when you said 100 homes sold by Dan Cooper.
Yeah.
I remember those ads.
Well, it's funny. I had an office meeting this morning, and we were talking about that. Back in the day, I would put up 100 sold signs on the 100th sale.
Yes, I think.
And it was a great marketing ploy. And my whole team today said, hey, we got to do that again. And so, I watch. It's probably going to happen in like May or June, but we're going to do it.
Old things become new.
I think so, yeah.
So, Dan, when you were first starting, obviously the Beaver was, it was the publication.
Yeah, it was.
Because I remember, you just saw huge ads from everybody. Tell us about your first, foray into the Oakville Beaver.
Well, back then you have to spend money to make money. And so I was always the first advocate of spending a lot of money to try and move things forward. So there was a few agents, top producers that were taking a full page in the local paper, the Oakville Beaver.
Yeah.
And so I showed up to the publication one day, and I wanted a double page spread. So I thought I was just going to rock this world. And so the double page spread came out. It was a Wednesday. So Wednesday at 9:00 in the morning, I'm at my office waiting for the phone to ring, to make all this money. And I don't think I had one phone call. And it was really a lunch bag letdown.
No
I thought, okay, now what? And so, again, that's all part of the learning process. You have to be repetitive. You have to do it over and over
Correct.
and over again. And eventually it starts to build momentum and take on its own life. So I expected, maybe like you back in 86 when you got in the business, I thought it was going to be easier, but it wasn't. But again, once you get the tricks of the trade, then
look, if it was that easy, Dan, and we all put full page ads, we'd all do it. It just doesn't. Right. It's just not that easy because we, like I said, anybody can spend the money and do it, but it still takes discipline and focus. The ads are there, the recognition was there, but you still have to. So you get an ad call. Well, okay, you get an ad call, but you got to know how to convert that ad call.
Sure.
You got to get them to sign on the dotted line. So obviously you had that talent.
Listen, you have to be a people person.
No
if you're
question.
Not a people person, maybe it's not the right industry. Yeah. And a lot of people size somebody up. You meet somebody for the first time, and within the first 5 seconds, you either like them or you're not sure. Well, it's much like that in real estate. You either get body language and the human dynamic and understand people right away, or you don't. And there's other people that take accountants and engineers. Maybe it's not their thing because they're just not wired that way.
And when was the first year? I mean, you got off to a heck of a start. When was the first year you were number one in Canada?
Well, I started off, pretty much almost right away, to be honest, because I started with a small boutique brokerage called Countrywide.
Yes.
And
right across the street.
Yeah. And they had 3,000 agents. And so in my first year, I was their top agent. And so I stayed there for a couple of years. And Roy LePage was always on my case. They always wanted me. And so Countrywide got bought out by Prudential in the U.S. And so they folded. So Prudential flew me down to California and tried to win me over at that time. And I just didn't drink the Kool-Aid. So I had some friends at Roy LePage. And so we decided to make a deal.
And then you quickly became number one in the entire country. So Dan, you were number one in Canada, I believe 6 or 7 times. That doesn't just happen. And you didn't have a massive team like we see today. So tell us a little bit about like that. Without the big teams, you're still number one 7 times.
Yeah. Well, my business predominantly works out of Oakville, and Oakville is kind of like the perfect size of community to get set up and get some recognition. If you're in Toronto, it's really hard to stand out because it's too big. Because back in the day, we always had farm areas where you kind of like focus on one specific area. But I kind of farmed Oakville, and it was just the right size, 100,000 people. So when you ran a lot of media and marketing, you could actually stand out within the first year. And so I did. And another good thing is our average sale price is decent.
Of course.
You know, if you're in Thunder Bay, you may do 400 deals a year, but you're still only making a small amount compared to what you can do. Because like right now in Oakville, as of today, the average sale price is still almost $1.7 million.
Yeah. That's incredible. Imagine that, Dan, in 1990, average price $1.7 million.
Well, you know, it's funny. In the beginning, I remember selling my first house over $1 million, and I double-ended it.
Wow.
And the check was good.
Of course.
And back then, it was a check. And so I color photocopied this check, and I had it on my desk for years after that because I was so proud.
Okay, Dan, so tell us, in order to get to the level that you're at, what are some of the traits that, our audience wants to hear? What are some of the traits they need to have to get to that level?
I suppose you could use the word intuitive. You want to be able to take advantage of opportunity, and everybody is exposed to opportunity on a daily basis, and it's what you do with that opportunity. So in many cases, I would risk a lot because if there was an option to collaborate with somebody to get ahead, I would say yes, and then figure out the logistics later. So I was always looking for ways to expand my reach by taking on new ventures. And so I was a big marketing nut back in the day. I was marketing everywhere, and then I would reach out to the local papers, the Globe and the Toronto Star, and make sure that if they were doing any coverage in the west end of the city, there was me in front of my sold sign. So, I would just honestly, from the very beginning, I would eat, breathe, sleep, think real estate. And it's just the way I'm wired.
Right. And that's, you can't always teach that, but at least maybe we can find that in some people and bring it out. But it's hard to find. And that's why people like you are so rare. But we try to create that, as broker owners, we try to find the traits. We watch people like you and we try to learn, what is it that makes these guys tick? What is it that makes them so successful? And we try to impart that on our agents and say, look, take some of these traits, take some of these things that they do, because success isn't, it's not just to one person. Like your success is there because of certain traits and certain things you do. So we try to emulate that and say, these are the things that you need to do, because it's, someone said it's not a rocket science, it's harder. Because it's because it takes such a personal commitment to it and the discipline. And maybe you don't realize that, but you're perhaps fortunate and lucky to have that innate, inside of you to do that, because obviously it's very rare. But it doesn't mean other people can't sort of find that inside themselves.
Well, back in the day, it was very lonely because everybody did their own independent thing. There were no teams, as you remember. Yeah. So I was probably one of the first agents. I think it was Christopher and Vidiata and myself. We were the first people to embrace teams. And so first year in the business, I was recruiting. I didn't know I was, but I was. And I started building up admin. Then I started bringing in buyer agents. And before you know it, I probably had 6 agents. And I kind of stayed at the 6 because I don't want to run a brokerage. I don't want to run a HR firm. I like to sell. And so I brought in people that were as good as or better than me, to be honest. That's what I would try to do. But I would leverage myself and teach them the basics. But yet, that's how you grow. You have to leverage.
And that's a fabulous point you just made about, you said you didn't want to be a brokerage because you knew what you wanted. You knew how you wanted to run your business. And did you not, you don't want 40 people because it's a different, it's a different dynamic, and it wouldn't allow you to do what you're doing.
No, I couldn't do what you do. You're a superhero.
Well, yeah, but I don't sell, so I don't have to worry about that other side of the other side of the equation. Yeah. So, yeah, but again, it just comes down to discipline and consistency, and that's why we love to watch people like you and see exactly how you do these things.
Well, you have to rebrand yourself, not just once, but regularly. And it's much like any house you go into. If you buy a brand new home, in 10 years it's dated. Like things are dated kind of on purpose, but there's built-in product obsolescence where they want you to buy new things after 10 years. the mechanicals wear out, the floor tile is completely different than what it was a decade ago. And it's much like that in your business, and so, I was always branding. And when I switched to Royal LePage, I rebranded myself again, not well, but I did it. And then I guess it was probably for my 25th anniversary in the business, I brought on Sabina Malik, and she was fantastic. So I kind of got her. She's into brand development in a big way, but wasn't really into the real estate space. So we worked together, and that was a big change for me, because that's when we brought out the I am Dan Cooper, we are Dan Cooper. We have this talking box, which is pretty cool, and it worked really well. So then we marketed it beyond belief. So we had T-shirts made up, and it's kind of like, I am Canadian. And
Right.
especially now, it'd be great to go back and do that now, because, we have this big divide right now between the U.S. and Canada. But back then, I was doing it because it was something unique and different, and nobody else was doing it. So we kind of owned the talking box.
Definitely the rebranding, when that happened, it was definitely the talk of the town.
Yeah.
And it definitely, and you had all the Mini Coopers.
We did. Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely out there. So I don't think anyone would forget that.
We even did a video once, and it's like the Italian Job, where at one point I had 6 Mini Coopers all branded, saying "We are Dan Cooper," and we did a photo shoot downtown Oakville, and it's still online on YouTube. You got to see it.
Yeah.
But what's really funny is we were giving away T-shirts that said "I am Dan Cooper." So every time we're at a function, we'd be handing out hats and T-shirts. And so I remember months later, it was summertime, and I'm driving down a street in Oakville, and there's a guy out cutting his lawn, and he's got an I am Dan Cooper T-shirt. I didn't even know him, but I'm in a marked Mini Cooper that says "We are Dan Cooper" on the side. So I drive by him, I'm honking my horn, he looks and he's waving, and it's just kind of fun, right?
For sure.
So it's fun to do stuff like that, because at the end of the day, I like to have a group around me where we actually love coming to work. We're very passionate about what we do.
Yeah, and that's very important. So again, Dan, people are listening, want to know more about you and your business. When you go on a listing appointment, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I always take somebody with me. That's the whole idea of a team. So we collaborate together, and that's probably one of my strengths. Back in the day, in the early 90s, I put together a 3-ring binder, because there was really no digital assets. And I put together what I called a brag book. So it was just, marketing pieces from the newspapers and anything about me that looked good and productive. I worked out of the brag book for years, but we've segued into almost full digital these days. And, that's probably one of our highlights. We try to educate the consumer with fact. We don't go in with fiction. It just doesn't work. So we take in a lot of data, a lot of analytics, and we go very granular, because at the end of the conversation, we're right down the dollars per square foot, because you have to, because it's the consumer's biggest investment in most cases. And you really have to have your act together. And that's why you're there. So if you're the real estate professional, you have to act and be one.
And your value prop, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't price. Like you weren't, a race to the bottom in terms of your fees. It was, these are my fees, but you brought value to the table. So I think what I like the audience to hear is all about, hey, you know what? You held your fees, and this is what you were worth, and you felt you were worth, and you showed them what you were worth.
Absolutely. I mean, you don't need to negotiate on your fees, because we're worth what we ask for. I mean, it is not out of line at all, and half the commission is going to the agent who brings the offer anyways. But it costs a lot of money to market a property properly, and in many cases we're spending much more than the average agent is. So it has to make sense from a business perspective. Otherwise, I may as well just stay at home and watch Seinfeld reruns.
Well, which brings me to another very interesting topic that I try to tell my agents all the time, is that we're in a business. I'm in a business, you're in a business. At the end of the day, we have to run it like a business. There has to be revenues and profits. And so tell me, I've kind of watched you from afar, and I assumed that you were a businessman, because I could just tell the way you took care of yourself, the things that you did. Tell us a little bit about the business side, that we also need to be focused on. At the end of the day, you've got to have something left, because why are we doing this? Right. And I think that gets lost on a lot of people, where they're so focused on revenues, but not at the end of the day what their bottom line is.
For years, I didn't really worry about the bottom line because we were making enough money that I knew there'd be something left over for me. And that was fine. But, we really do watch, and especially every time there's a downturn in the market, much like we're in right now, you really get back to grassroots. You have to understand your business because there has to be some profit potential. Otherwise, what are you doing? And so you have to sort of redo all the financials and just look at every expense that's going through your office because, it's no different than any other business. So we're probably cutting out probably 25% of what we were spending because it didn't make sense, but we're too busy to worry about it.
Right.
So you have to be efficient from a financial perspective.
No question, even good times and bad. So,
yeah,
it's just an interesting dynamic in our business that I don't think it's always followed. Okay, Dan. So another big thing that people would want to know is how do you generate new business?
A big chunk of our business is probably referrals. Because I've been in the business for 35 years, we've done repeat business with the same family for quite a while. So we count on that, but we're always looking for new clients. You have to, because that's always a moving target. So you have to have, every 2 years we redo our website. And you have to really make sure, like these days, it's all online, as we know. I used to do a ton of, flyers. I'd spend $250,000 just on flyers. But nobody goes to their super mailbox anymore. No. And if they do, they just basically throw it out. So suddenly you got to shift gears and move on. And so we're always looking for new online initiatives. But on the flip side, to be fair, we talked about going full circle. We're going back to doing the basics again and actually really trying to get in front of people and face-to-face in relationships. And so the consumer, whether you know this or not, they love to see that you're involved in local initiatives, philanthropy, any kind of charitable things is, I think, a stroke for you. And so we're looking at how can we be involved locally in the community. We're doing a good thing, but at the same time, there is some exposure in it. And so, to be honest, we're always out looking, talking to people, and looking for new opportunities and initiatives. So that never ends. You wanted.
Yeah, the key there is you're looking for you're meeting people.
Absolutely,
you're talking to people.
Yeah,
you're not just depending on social media or the newspaper. You've got to be out there and you've got to be meeting people. And that's what we're really, really focusing on. And exactly what you just said is that's back to basics.
And everybody in your office, how many agents do you have in your office?
So between the two offices, we're about between 140 and 150 people.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot.
Yeah. But it's keeping them all motivated and teaching them what they need to do. It's a challenge.
Oh, they're lucky. Challenge. They're lucky they got you.
Yeah. Well, I like to think so, but I'm not always as influential as I like to be. But we work on it. We work on it constantly. It's a never ending task. I guess when you talked about community initiatives, you've been a big supporter of the Oakville Center for Performing Arts. Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, I had never been in the Performing Arts Center. I was 2 or 3 years in the business. And I went to see a concert. It was actually Holly Cole, funny enough. And I was in one of the lesser seats at the very back. And I was really impressed that this was in Oakville and I didn't even know about it. And so the theater manager was on stage and he said, we're looking for new sponsorship. At the halftime, I basically went up and struck up a conversation with him right away. And I became a big supporter. And so I have the whole Dan Cooper concert series. Yes. And I've done that for, 25 years. And it's fantastic because
your signs, I see it.
Yeah. They got
they got Dan Cooper concert series. So,
you got, so there's a lot of, peripheral marketing that came out of it. And then you've got almost 500 people sitting for a concert.
That's got.
I'm going tonight to a concert, one on Friday, and so it's kind of fun. So I can enjoy it personally, and also at the same time, I'm doing a good thing for the local community, and it gets recognized.
For sure.
And I mentioned earlier flyers, how I used to do a ton of flyers. Well, it didn't happen overnight, but after several months of the circulation I had, I go in to a listing appointment and one flyer would be on their kitchen table when it was my flyer. I would just look at it and I'd look at the other agent that I had with me and I'd just kind of wink and go, look, because you are what you sow, and marketing is everything. And so if I could give anybody any advice, just spend money in the right areas, and market from the very, very beginning, because you have to get exposure out there. People have to learn who you are.
But I guess it's the consistency.
Absolutely.
People would come in my office and say, I sent out 1,000 flyers yesterday and I didn't get a call.
Yeah.
Apropos to your double page ad in the Beaver. But I go, okay, that's great, but that just doesn't happen overnight. If it was that easy, we'd all do it.
Yeah.
Now it's consistency, discipline, and keep doing it over time. And it's the patience and of course funds. You need to have funds to get that done.
Yeah. And then, like I say, new opportunities come all the time. I mean, a friend of mine happens to sit on the board for the Lighthouse Foundation. And we have done very little work with them in the past, but we just picked up an opportunity where they have a fundraiser in March, where they're going to get 500 people at the Oakville Convention Center. We're going to be the music sponsor. And so I'm providing the band, which is going to be the Spoons, which is a fantastic 80s retro band. And I know them because of my affiliation with the Oakville Center for the Performing Arts. And actually their lead singer, Gord Depp, became a personal friend of mine. And I've sold him all his real estate. It's funny how everything goes full circle.
Of course.
So if I didn't get out there and do this, I wouldn't have met them, which led to that. And so, time, yes, I've been in the business for a while, but for new agents, they really just got to get out there and talk to people and collaborate and build new initiatives and join networking groups and talk and show them what you've got.
So again, a little more advice from you, Dan. What do you see today? I mean, you have agents around you on your team. You also see a lot of other agents around you. If you could see one thing or a couple of things that they're doing wrong today, what would that be?
You know what? Maybe it's just their work ethic. They're probably just not as driven as I am. I mean, not to pick on gens, but the millennials, for example, they didn't have the hardship that we did. For example, when I grew up, my parents had some money, but they certainly didn't share it. I put myself through university. I had to do everything. There was no handouts. And so I had to figure it out all on my own. And that made me stronger and gave me much more character to succeed in business. These days, the kids have so many handouts that they're a little impaired when it comes to knowing how to work hard to make it happen.
Yeah, that's so true. It's just so true that, our generation, Dan, of parents, we created these millennials, so we're responsible, eh, Dan?
Great,
but I find the young people that come in, it's a challenge. It really is a challenge trying to get them to get back to that basics that you and I had dealt with. But, it's just full circle. It's just come back. It's just the way it is. And it's kind of always been there. Mm-hmm. And you did it in your way. And the most successful people in our business, it's all about those relationships. And it's all about that persistence and discipline.
Yeah. And, there's so many new opportunities in real estate right now because it's a moving target, as we know. But with the advent of AI and everything else, there's just so many new ways to make money. Your whole approach to real estate is going to be completely different. So I'm going to have to call Sabina and rebrand again because you know what I mean? It's changing so much, and that's good. Change is good. And so think of all the people that are capitalizing on this AI breakout, and they're just making so much money. So it's the same thing in real estate.
So we just did our rebranding with Sabina. Okay, Dan, I guess, when you started off with 51 deals in your first year, that's unconscionable in the world that I live in, which is amazing. But obviously the hundreds or thousands of deals that you've done, there's got to be a couple of doozies, some stories. Give us a good example of a doozy that a story that you'd love to tell about a deal.
There's probably lots that I can't share with you.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I've seen a lot. And every time I think I've seen everything, I haven't. I keep getting re-impressed.
Of course.
I mean, back in the early 90s, there was a lot of stress on the whole marketplace. And, how many times did I do a deal where I remember there was a split up and I think there was a court order where they weren't supposed to be in the same room. And so back in the day, deals were always done on Friday nights at the kitchen table.
Yes, sir.
So the other agent's sitting there, it's my listing. I'm at the other end of the kitchen table on a Friday night. And so the the one vendor sitting there, and the other one starts to come in the room, and I guess she lost it, and she had a pan in her hand. She threw the pan. I look at the other agent, and I go, incoming. We both duck, and pan hits the wall, and it was just mayhem. We sold the house. But you asked for a crazy story.
Wow.
Other crazy stories. I remember during COVID, when things were insane for a little while, you get like 10 offers on a property. Okay, so I had a buyer, and she desperately wanted this townhouse, and it was a beautiful townhouse. So I pull up to do the deal. Then you would show up in your car with your buyer in the laneway. There was cars everywhere. It was like a convention. And so it wound up being 18 offers on this one property. Wow. Yeah, anyways, we got it. We got the deal. I think we paid a couple $100,000 over the ask, which still in my mind was a good deal. But it was so hard to make money because, think about it. 17 agents went home with nothing.
Correct. And they worked hard on that deal.
Yeah. And how did I get it? Well, I'll tell you how I got it. First thing I did is when I showed the property, I purposely made sure I met the homeowners, and I spent a fair bit of time just chatting with them, getting to know them, and so that way they got to know me, and I told them how great my family was and the kids and how much, emotionally attached to the property they were. I did everything in my power to stand out.
Create a connection.
Exactly. And then when we went in with the offer, I had my client in the car. The deposit check was a bank draft, meaning it was cash. There was no conditions in the offer. I knew in advance what the ideal closing date was. Like I kind of had everything premeditated. And so it was a no-brainer. So yeah, 18 offers and we got the deal. So those are some cool stories.
But we talked about this in a previous podcast. That's called preparation.
Yeah.
And knowledge. You had the knowledge of what you thought it was worth.
Yeah.
But you also prepared. And this is the value that you brought to that buyer. Like you did your job ahead of time.
Right.
Right. And you did your job. Okay. You want to make a deal, but you know what? The buyer had to be looked after. And if you didn't do those steps, you may not have gotten the deal.
Right.
So there's the value to that buyer. And I try to tell people, some agents can be not worth anything, but a good agent is worth their weight in gold.
It's critical to work with your fellow agents and make sure everybody gets along and likes each other because you're all eating out of the same food bowl. And,
and you're going to run into each other
all the time. And when you're doing a deal, like now, that most of the deals come via an email, but there's a lot of agents that will just send an offer and you don't even hear from them. No. And then if there's 3 offers and you don't hear from one, you're certainly not going to go out of your way to support them.
No. It's a challenge today. Yeah. People just don't. The communication levels is challenging. Mm-hmm. Not the way we did. It's like you said, Friday. I don't know about Friday nights, but definitely. So Dan, tell us a little bit about. Let's get some fun into this. What is your pet peeve when it comes to the real estate business?
My pet peeve? I try to be as punctual as possible. So I don't. It'd be great if everybody was on time, or at least would text to say they're not. To the point where if I'm on an appointment with people, if I'm going to be 5 minutes late, I'll text them and at least let them know because everybody's like this on their phones these days and they have an agenda. So I suppose there's only so much time. It's a limited amount. So I would say I'm kind of zoned in on that.
They say when you're early, you're on time. When you're on time, you're late. And when you're late, you're done.
Wow. That was pretty good.
Yeah. That's a saying I never forget. So that's a great, 2026 and beyond. What's going on with the Dan Cooper Group?
Well, listen, we never sleep. We're in reinventing the wheel as we speak right now. So we're looking at new products, services, technologies. We're using Chat GPT daily to figure out, what we can and can't do and change and improvise. I mean, the structure, the look of our business is going to change yet again. It's like a rebranding in a way. Some of the physical stuff may not change, but the inside under the hood is changing. Right. So I'm not really giving you any specifics, but if anything, we're getting back to basics more than we were. Like I say, we're going to be more people facing than we were. We're going to get involved more collaborative community events, more philanthropy. And again, we're going to be alert and on time and, there for people because, you know how many agents are in the business. It's a crowded workspace, and that could be a pet peeve. I mean, there's probably not enough governance that way. Like, everybody's a real estate agent.
Well, that's a discussion for another day, because I could probably go on by myself for about 3 hours on that topic. So yeah, there's definitely too much of that going on. Okay, Dan, let's finish up with one last question, and that is, how do you want the Dan Cooper Group or Dan Cooper to be seen? You know, how do you want your legacy to be viewed in the future?
Well, I think as time goes by, I'm delegating myself slowly every year, slowly but surely, out of a job, because I'm bringing on new talent. As I said earlier, that's as good as or better than I am. I just brought on a new business development manager, which is phenomenal. And so I'm filling in all the gaps to the point where I can have a life. And it's important, because you don't want to burn yourself out. So you want to hire and have the right system in place so you can offer the latest and greatest products and services, but you have to have a life at the end of the day. Why? Because we give enough money to taxes as it is. So I've always been a strong supporter of, work hard and play hard. So if I need to get away, I'll board a plane and I'm gone for a week. And I'll do that a lot. But when I'm home, I'm all in. And so, I like that. And so in terms of a legacy, I think I'm just going to spend more time with my agents, making them as good as they possibly can. I want to support their independent businesses. And if I do that, then I think that the brand, the name, the legacy will continue.
Yeah, for sure. Well, look, there's been a lot of very good information. I hope everyone listening out there, took a lot from this. I think people love to hear from people like you, because again, it's rare to see that level of success, and it's not easy to do. But the consistency, I think, is just so fascinating at how consistent you've been and for so long. And it's amazing to hear from people like you. I can't thank you enough for coming on today. So it's been a pleasure, and I'm sure my audience really appreciates it. Thank you, Dan.
Listen, it's been an honor for me too, Carlo. You've been in this business a long time, and you're highly regarded, and people look up to you. And I'm happy to be here, collaborating with you, building our businesses together.
Well, this is maybe the first, but definitely not the last time.
Love it.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.